We are on to the final presentation for today, following which we will have some award ceremony. We have the pleasure of introducing Mr. Chimenuka Zimselector, and he will take us through NSSA's presentation on the role of national social security on the economy and the role that it has in the economy. So we have the voice of the Chief Strategic Investments Officer from NSSA. So coming from the horse's mouth, pay attention, take lots of notes. Presentation slides, as we said, will be shared afterwards. Thank you very much.
The younger ages. Our challenge as an economy is the owner or the contributor. So if you know where they go, regardless of how much they put there, stock market they go there. Through this from the top of my head, since you is perhaps. All right, thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It would be my wish to have my hands rolling free, so I hope I'll be audible enough for all of you. Essentially, I'm riding on the video that you just saw. One of the greatest objectives that I see out of it is that, that video pretty much depicts the journey that we embarked on in 2016, and some of the results are beginning to bear fruit. I think that video in its entirety sums up the presentation, and perhaps coupled with what my brother was talking about earlier. You would note that most of the investments that we often see and reported in the public media are negative in terms of the outlook, in terms of the reading, in terms of the aesthetics. But much in the same vein, we also hope and pray that through platforms like this, where we open ourselves to you can see the actual granular detail that is inside rather than what is historical. And I do say so because most of what even we read predates the existence of the current team, it predates the existence of most of the strategies that are now being deployed and the results that are beginning to bear fruit or manifest. But I'll walk you through basically what we are trying to put across. I think the preamble pretty much has been addressed by IPEC. Again, we'll also speak to the issues of pension funds, insurance funds as one, as global. But in essence, I think the most enlightening thing is that this particular sector of funds plays key roles in the economy, and one of such is that there is provision of income stability, and that can also not only be achieved by the product itself, that when things go southwards, you've got insurance to lean on, but when the funds are deployed and are employed effectively and efficiently, you do create jobs. I think there was a slide that showed the number of jobs that the sector has created, and those are pretty much direct and indirect. To an extent, on the indirect form, there are actually a lot more that come out of the economic activity where these funds invest into. And pretty much, again, the aspects of making labor markets more efficient, because when you create jobs, you create options for people to move from one employer to the other, and also for them to switch their productivity. So I won't delve much on the preamble. And the simplistic universe of how these funds exist is that we find, I'm very happy to put NSSA there, but again, that represents the sector. You find that we've got the people, and this is one of the most important assets of the sector itself. We generate the premiums and the contributions from the masses, and this is coupled between employers and employees. But at the same time, you find that we've got regulation, and regulation is very important. I think there was a couple of questions that came up asking, so what is it that is done when certain things don't go as promised? And you find that regulation based tends to put people in line. Then we also have the most important people, who are those that are already ahead of the schedule, and that's your beneficiaries, your pensioners, or those that are now eligible to receive what has been promised. These are pretty much the benchmark that is used to judge whether all these players in the pensions and insurance sector are delivering on the promise that they committed to in the beginning. And yes, the intermediation of the platform upon which those funds are then deployed, and they come in varied forms and shapes. I move on to the aspect of why we exist and why we believe these funds should play a very important role in creating an enabling environment for the economy. One such rationale behind why I put this slide is that we find when an economy is not powerful at its base, when an economy does not have a solid foundation in its primary sector investments, which is why you find that's at the core, is pretty much all your dependent sectors will not thrive. And we say this because if you don't have energy, your manufacturing sector is going nowhere. When you don't have a reliable transport network, the products that you get in an economy are generally expensive. So this speaks to your competitive advantage relative to others in the global scheme of things. When you talk about the secondary sectors, you also now say, well, where are we as a country? Agriculture, yes, Zimbabwe is primarily known for that, but when you have a failed road network, your produce is either going to go out of the market, or it's going to be very expensive to deliver to the market. And again, you see some of these things, they tie to what we have currently as an economy. Although, yes, we're saying we're trying. Then, when we talk about the tertiary sectors, this is your retail, your service, your leisure, pretty much what every one of us enjoys or expects out of their life. But all these things hinge on your primary sector. And why I put this there is that my presentation, whilst it talks about how pensions and insurance funds are enablers, the primary base of discussion is we should find or begin to look at addressing the building blocks that allow our economies to flow, and that allows Zimbabwe to flow. And this pretty much brings in the next point there, which speaks to the investment approach on these, or from these insurance and pension funds. I'll use the case in point of NASA, for instance. And you find that the investment approach has to have a balancing act. And this balancing act is between the pensioner's interest and national development. Those two goals there are very key because remember, like we're saying, or like what IPEC has presented, the general platform of investment options available, it's either you're in the money market, or you're in the stock market, or you're in property, or you're in government securities. The other three, the government securities, can easily help your fund to achieve pensioner interests. But government securities sometimes become very critical for national development. And there with me, we are carrying the assumption that all government securities are meant or targeted towards national development. I know on the ground we might have different stories, but that's the assumption we carry for this. There is always a need to ensure that you've got a portfolio quality which is on point in terms of the liquidity, in terms of the risk, in terms of the income, and at the same time for you to generate sustainable investment returns. When it comes to the national development agenda, I think what you're talking about is the infrastructure development and what sort of effort are you putting towards priority government projects. I'll come back to this because the greater part of my presentation is really much trying to angle towards how pension and insurance funds directed towards infrastructure funding or financing can actually assist in enabling economic growth and development. I touch on an aspect of the pension systems and what you generally find. You find that in a normal state where perhaps your government and pretty much your government is saying we would like to pay our pensioners from the taxes that we generate, that particular base there does not create for you an investment pool, and it speaks to the example that IPEC was giving, where the government pension fund literally takes from its pocket and funds in pension payouts, and that's that. That's your zero pillar thing. You find in such a space you do not have any investment funds that are pooled that can be deployed to any other activity. Your first pillar, where you have the employer and the employees being avenues of cash flow, is where you find contributions and the premiums coming from both parties, the employer and the employees, being more or less what we have in our current setup. And the investment returns become a very important function, because if the contribution rates may begin to suffer, or the compliance rate is weak, then your investment returns to some extent can also support or complement when there is failure by those two to contribute meaningfully. And that is one important reality that we currently have in our economy, where contributions may have come back then, but when you have a shrinking employment base in your country, you're going to find that you have a growing or a fat stock of pension beneficiaries and insurance policies that are now maturing, which are expecting to get payouts, and they are heavily dependent on the performance of the investment returns, or else you start having situations where the funds themselves are failing to honor what they promised. And again, we'll just run through what those factors are. The second and third pillars are a function of a somewhat developed economy, one that has people that are high in terms of appreciation of insurance and pension products. This is where you find that you are now getting voluntary premiums. It is not up to pension and insurance on top of what may be obligatory. So in this case, I'll probably put NSSA. And then in the second pillar, you're now getting people who say, yeah, oh, but I still need an extra pension product from Fidelity. I still need some other insurance cover from Zimselector or Nichols Diamond. This is where you've got an economy with people who are quite literate in terms of how they also want to feel that protection for themselves. So if we go to the size of the pot, we find that this kind of economy should have greater insurance and pension funds readily available for deployment into investment related to this, and that one will be zero. So it's just to try and hope what sort of, and to try and hope placement in your mind as to where do we fall as a country. What I will not run away from is walking us through this particular aspect, and I will probably dwell a little bit of time. On a macro scale, you find that there are a lot of inflationary pressures which can also affect a number of things. The replacement ratios, I think my brother did talk about, where you find currently in Zimbabwe, when one retires, what they get out of their pension is not entirely a large proportion of what they were getting when they were still employed. So it then becomes an issue of, well, I did make contributions, but I'm earning peanuts. And this is often aligned to an economy where either it has suffered from hyperinflation, it has suffered from a shrinking employment base, or where you also find that the model of the fund is one way it rides on current contributions being the source of payouts for pensioners, and the ratio of the employed is shrinking. Then the employment and income level also plays a part, because I think, like I indicated, when the inflation is getting hard, most of these sectors become reality. We move on to the regulatory guidelines as well and how they affect the pensions insurance space. When you find there are significant restrictions and the depth of markets is weak, there is not much that the pension fund managers can do. They are stuck within the aspect of living within the restrictions. One restriction I can give is, for instance, where you find if the rules, and that's through the prescribed asset ratios, if they say you are largely supposed to be in fixed income securities or government securities, regardless of you being in an inflationary environment, if those rules are not changed quickly, those funds are going to be hit and they will suffer loss of value. Again, some would say you can only but invest 5 to 10% of your funds offshore. And in an economy or in an environment where you significantly are dependent on generating, or where you need to generate a lot of foreign income, if you've got such restrictions, again, it also limits what your fund can do in terms of what it pays out to its members. Then you also have the labor regulations of retirement age. Some, like NASA, you have 3 tiers of retirement, where 55 being for adverse in the employment environment, 60 for early retirement, and 65 for late retirement. In some countries, they will basically say, well, retirement is probably something that we talk about after 65. You've got 10 years. For pension and insurance funds or contributions that have to get into such a fund, 10 years is a lot. And that has a lot of bearing on the size and the power and potentially what that fund can also pay out. Then governance requirements, I think my brothers there from IPEC did speak a lot as to who is supposed to be playing what role, and the board of directors is a very significant player, and they do affect that when you have board of directors who either playing in cahoots or are sleeping on the job, you're definitely going to have a challenge for that particular fund. Population structure, I think that one I can't overemphasize. I'll give you the case in point of the Western world, where for them, they're not dying. And it's a sad reality sometimes that when people don't die, the funds struggle. But that's the truth. You need that to have continuity. So in this particular sector, they have an old age that's correct. And they are not bearing kids fast enough to support the productivity of the economy as well. So you find that what they are having is they're having funds that are now paying out a lot more than what they are receiving. The flip side of that is, I'll use Zimbabwe. We have pensioners, yes, coming up, but we are actually quite productive in the younger ages. Our challenge as an economy is the jobs. There are no jobs, but you find there's more and more pressure on the $80 or the $170 that NASA pays out, because this pensioner has a growing dependency base. So they now probably have their own kids, grandkids to take care of for the same amount of money. So the population structure there it comes in with a big knock. The pension fund model, again, what Captain was saying, some are defined benefits, and that's your NASA, where you're promised a benefit. It's a function of the model, which then takes into account of how many years did you contribute, what was your last salary, 12 months before you retired, and you also have the defined contribution. Defined contribution will basically, that's just passing the risk to you, the owner or the contributor. So if you suffer from inflation, if you suffer from all these other external changes, and it hits your fund, and it means, well, where you're supposed to be getting 10 years of cover, you're now getting 5, it's your risk, it's not anyone else's fault. Those two models are very different, because a defined benefit specifically requires an underwriter who guarantees the promise. And in the case of NASA, you find that the government guarantees that promise. And that's why there's significant stakeholders saying, hey, hold on, what's going on there? And unlike, or in the case of your private sector models, the employer is usually the underwriter. And so the scheme model also creates its own challenges depending on what the economic dynamics look like. The governance and operational framework, basically we're just talking about this in line with that governance requirements, but I set it out aside specifically because this is what often determines the aspect of those investment returns I was talking about. Where you've got an investment policy statement that is weak and that is not all-encompassing, you are going to find that the fund is open to anything that comes. It flows and goes by the wind. So if one says, no, Masvano, my treasure goes down fire, I'm going like, oh, regardless of how much they put there. Stock market lawyer beta, they go there. So it's a very, it guides what the pension and insurance funds do, and it's pretty much what is the spine of performance. So whenever one wants to evaluate the performance of these particular funds, request to look at this and try and understand how the underlying sectors are performing. Then you can critically judge or evaluate the soundness of their investment strategy. I think I'll talk through this from the top of my head since you get it. I've already touched on the issue of population structure. That's demonstrated there. The case for participation, which I'm talking about there, is perhaps to leave a seed within your minds to say, our pension and insurance funds, literally they're supposed to focus on what is generic in the investment space. Money market, equities market, the government bonds, and property market and stay there. Or at some point, they're also supposed to take a front foot and be a lead in terms of exploring other asset classes that are available. I think one of the benefits that IPEC spoke about is infrastructure financing. And this is what literally this presentation is trying to push for, to say, in essence, we're an economy that is still short of so many legs of infrastructure. And infrastructure by no means does it restrict us to houses, does it restrict us to roads, does it restrict us to dams, but the global picture of the primary enablers that I spoke to earlier, where I said the primary sector that we need to also focus on is where our secondary and tertiary sectors sit on. As we stand, we do have significant gaps. And at the same time, let me hasten to say, it is not up to pension and insurance funds to be the primary push or motivators to see the attainment of that, but we do have a role to play. So, in essence, that's what I'm going to walk you through. So, the population dynamics, I think that's already done with, but pension funds have the right capital characteristics as well. And you're looking at it from the viewpoint that usually when you're taking on a life policy from somebody who is 30, somebody who is 35, or somebody who is 40, it's life. And they're going to be paying probably until that you have set as a minimum until they die. You've got funds that are spanning as far as 15 years plus. When you look at capital that banks offer, it cannot sustain and support infrastructure development. Why? Because number one, it's private capital. Two, it's very expensive. Three, it's short term. The benefit and the beauty of what pension and insurance funds can offer to an economy is that these funds are long term. And don't get me wrong, they are not cheap for the sake of comparison between bank capital and pension funds capital. In a long term investment perspective, those funds are pretty much just about the same. But on a long-term basis, they appear to be cheaper. Why? Because short-term funds, if I give you a 2-year loan, when you want to roll it over, I charge you a fee again, right? It's probably 2% or whatever it is. After another 2 years, I'm going to charge you another 2%. These funds will probably say, for the 15 years, I'll charge you the 2%, but that's once. So this way it becomes the conversation of really, where do we stand in terms of pricing? Then you also find that it's necessary to look at this particular capital because it helps to sustain projects through their entire life cycle. If you get 5-year money for a project that requires a construction time or lead of 3 years, after the 3 years the project is online, the project requires a further 5 years for it to generate the cash flows to pay you. With bank capital, that's not practical. It's not going to be a sustainable project. With long-term capital from insurance and pension funds, if it's 15 years, it's going to afford the project to be completed, to start generating cash flows, and the structure of the funds to then say, well, I've been there for the next 7 years. These are my terms for yielding and generating value. And when some funds are well structured, we find that the yields are probably higher than what you can get. The other case for that is we find that, I'm sure we've all read widely, and we continue to do so. It's always a story, Africa is behind in terms of development, Africa has got this. It's a good story for us when we read it. The sadness is we're doing nothing about it. How many of us would say you have not read an article where China has already started hitting hard in most of these African countries? They've seen the opportunity, and we're sitting. They have funds which are under threat because of the population dynamics, and they're looking for investment havens for their money. And after 6 years, we then hear the African countries say, no, we got a bad deal from China. After all, they didn't bring much development, they're just taking away from us. They've got their own problems to deal with. And they will deal with it by taking advantage of situations and opportunities that exist within our landscape. So again, we read widely, we know where the shortcomings are for our own infrastructure, and we need to do something about it, because if you don't, you're passing value to the next person who is willing to put money. What they commit into these countries is long-term capital. Long-term capital sustained by their insurance and pensions from their own economies. And remember, these are very large economies, so they can afford to place quite a bit with us. Activities, we've got the dates. We are still at that primary level. But when they are broken down further, you begin to see the little pockets and opportunities where you can play. You've got the listed and unlisted. You've got the capital markets, you've got the private debt. This is where you find in your capital markets, you've got your government bonds, your corporate bonds, your project bonds. We have ITPZ, quite popular for creating infrastructure bonds. Those are your project bonds there. You've got corporate bonds where most of the private companies are actually opening up and saying, well, we need to raise money for a particular project. A case in point is BNC. You may want to know how many pension funds did participate in their corporate bond, which they introduced because they were trying to finish the smelter program. Smelter program, beautiful story, add value, bringing foreign CTC. That's a typical example. Government bonds, we know what those are. You come to the equity side, you've got infrastructure stocks, we are not yet there. Yeah. But this is an avenue which is quite exciting for those that have started looking into it. And then on the private debt, loans to intra-companies and project loans. I think the reason why I just put this is to try and bring in this perspective amongst us to say, when you start asking or challenging the depth of our own financial markets, we still have a bit more to go. And there are a lot of other opportunities which we can use those instruments to help our pensions and the insurance funds to actually focus and invest their funds into. I just wanted to also add a little bit more flair to it by giving us practical examples of where we are as a country and compare that with the region. I have taken liberty to borrow some things from NASA. This is basically the value proposition wheel of NASA. I don't think this has yet been achieved by the public to a great extent, but amongst our stakeholders, it's now quite clear. The role of the pension fund, the insurance fund, customized for NASA. We will start off with this. Okay, it's not coming. Yeah. But it's okay, the main topic. You find that the role that NASA plays, and I'm focusing specifically on things that touch on the investment side and what your funds are supposed to be doing, or what we aim for them to do, is NASA plays a critical role in being a consolidator. And being a consolidator, they will say, NASA to a greater extent has been criticized for being passive in most of its investments. You sit back, yeah, the company falls down, you sit back, management does what they do, the next thing is the company is in need of some form of financial aid. we have taken an initiative to say, well, look, we are pretty much spread across so many of these similar type investments. I'm sure when you talk about banks, there's so many articles that have been written about NSSA, this bank, that bank, that bank, that bank. Some have failed, some you have continuously seen NSSA going into or starting some more. And the question is, why are you even doing that? We've also sat down and said, well, look, there's something in there. How do we extract value? We can consolidate, we can reshape industry, we can remold what a sector is generally known for. And I'll give a case in point of something that has already been rolled out and which we've implemented, is the insurance industry, as per the presentation, is one sector we've already started working on. Why? Because we have deployed capital into 3 or 4 different type insurance companies. If all of them require capital injection, that's going to cost NASA 3 layers of capital injection. But if you pull these together and their capitalization improves, NASA is not going to invest more money into insurance because it's already invested into insurance. The products that these businesses are offering, they are the same. What are they fighting for? A market. Is the market growing? Not really. Why? Because the economy is also not really growing. The employment base is also not really growing. So they are fighting for the same cake. So they are all going to give you mediocre performance. Alas, there's a giant in the house. That's all mutual. They're focused. They've gone towards one particular direction and they're running. You've got 3 different cats chasing small balls. It's not helping the pension fund. It's not helping the insurance fund. So in the consolidation agenda, what you're just trying to do is to say, reevaluate your positions and bring these things together. They shape industry because what you probably knew is one short-term insurance player being a standalone is now a subset of a giant investment structure that NASA has. And that's where we've put in Nichols Diamond merging with TriStar, and all of them are under First Mutual Holdings. First Mutual Holdings has been generating significant returns, and we've started seeing that fruit coming through. Impact investments, again, I'll talk to that together with the aspect of value player. Where is it? Okay, there. We're saying you also want to offer lowest premiums to ensure that no one is left out and out of social security. Not only do you offer value by offering low premiums, but you create options and opportunities for people to have or benefit from some of their life cycle needs. One of the key needs that we realize people have is housing, and that has not only been attainable by creating NPS, which is now profitable, by the way, and you find that the impact of having such a model has been to offer affordable, and it's not low cost, affordable. And the premise is that most of the banking institutions and building societies, they operate on private capital. Remember, their essence is outright profit at whatever cost. We're saying you can still be profitable, but also cater for some of the needs that people have. And again, I'll show you just a few of the things that NPS has been able to do. If I was to talk about this, well, we would spend the whole day. But in essence, you get the presentations, and it does talk to what we're trying to achieve. And some of the issues, again, speak to the SDGs that IPEC I'll give you quick highlights of NBS. And that's pretty much completed projects there. $17 million worth, 840 units. The models that have been employed are models that is to collect on a mortgage facility. And this is where I'm pointing to the fact that where you've got an initiative taken by one to put a structure in place, private sector and pension funds can be very much willing to support. And one of the enabling characteristics that you find is partnerships are easier to make when you focus on the right things. Ongoing projects, these are things that are already on the ground, and the planned partnerships again have a total impact outcome of creating 9,125 units. One would then question, but that's not enough. Again, like I said, if you want to have a prudently managed fund, don't expect the fund to do everything. It only sets the tone and plays a part on what and where it can. And remember, you need to be guided by that investment policy statement. It's got rules. You need to respect those rules. This is just a small pictorial of some of the developments that have happened. This is Zimselector, and yeah, they're looking quite nice from an aerial view. It's got its own other dramas, but we focus on the primary value that is within and what that can generate. In an environment like what we have now, yes, it was a story which had its own connotations then, but substance over form. In an inflationary environment, that house and the value put in there versus what it generates now, that's significant value preservation. And the scope of that is where you've got an economy which needs such things to be done, you definitely would serve a purpose, although well downplayed because of the nature of who we are. Another just quick highlights, South Africa, I think the regulations were already spoken to what IPEC can also do. They do guide in terms of what sort of exposure one fund has to take in a particular asset class. It has impact on affecting how you allocate your funds. But what was more important is using this example where the government employees pension fund, which should be managed by PIC, at some point during their lifetime, they discovered that we need to do something infrastructure related and to fund a project. And they did this in partnership with Old Mutual. All I'm driving it again is that point where when you start hitting the right notes, it's easier for you to attract partnerships, especially from the private sector, because they also tick a box as to what good comes out of it. A lot of good came out of that particular project, and again, the narration of such is given. Zambia, I think with that one, all I was just trying to do is to say, how many of you would remember Zambia before it was the place where we now all go to buy groceries? It was a mess. But there were also people who wrote articles about Zambia at the time that they started developing to say, those are Chinese funds, and those are South African funds, and well, it's short-lived, it's creating asset bubbles. It's true. When your economy is growing, you're going to have asset bubbles. It overheats. But you know, the reality is the building that you have built will never go anywhere. And it aids and fosters the next investor to say, I want to set up in Zambia and I want to do big things. Can I get some office accommodation? Yeah, readily available. Huge move. You can look for something in there. And that's what attracts capital. Right now, Zambia is one of the most stories we all talk about. Yeah, I know Zambia is dying, it's truth be told is the NSSA, their pension fund, similar to NSSA, was instrumental in being part of most of these projects. Not by putting a lot of money, by putting their head on the block to say, no, for the local side of investment, we will partner you. And the people that came in with money into Zambia are your pension funds from South Africa. That's why you find all the shops, ShopRite, and all these other brands, they were attached to those particular malls. They came with those conditions, but their pension and insurance funds took the first step to say, we will support this from a local point of view, regardless of the controversies and the noise that was said about it. Right now, Zambia is one of the most beautiful places that you want to be. You might not get the day, but they are already showing the signs of being a destination of love. So, in essence, there's so much that insurance and pension funds can do, and it's all but a tone of how you also view what role they can play. Pension and insurance funds, ladies and gentlemen, are like your banks. When anything negative is said and written about these institutions, there is no positive that can be expected out of it, because it all hits to confidence. You will not put money into a bank that you know, this bank, the executive is stealing money. No way. Much in the same way would you be very open-minded to say, well, actually, they've done something good, because all that resonates in your mind is, after all, they don't do much for us. The performance of pension and insurance funds is a function of a broader number of factors, and I think he touched on some of them. I touched on some of them, and largely some of which none of the actual players can control, because they're at a macro level, and there is need to have the right policy for that macro level for these funds to be able to do more for their beneficiaries and to do more for all of us, because one of the mechanisms that is generally missing in how these funds are performing and whether they serve a purpose is the role that they play on a day-to-day basis in what we do. And like I say, the life cycle investments that pension and insurance funds play, you will not see them visibly until you then know the granular detail of who's behind this particular project. Otherwise, thank you very much for hearing this.
Excellent presentation, I'm sure you'll all agree, and lots of food for thought, so we're expecting quite a few questions, which unfortunately we're going to limit for time and try to get the questions done in the next 10 to 15 minutes. So, first up, who's got a question for Chuck?
Mine is just on the pension payout. I understand that you have declared your assets for the year 2018. For the year 2018. And the year 2018, everything was in US dollar. Now when you are making your pension increases, are you going to take that into account, the 2.5%, the rate that the government of the Reserve Bank instituted?
That's a very tough question. I wish the minister was here. But I think what I'll start off with is how the PAAB has prescribed over the aspects of the currency interpretations. Most of the listed companies, as you might be aware, are all declaring their numbers for this past financial year using the US dollars. So most of our valuations and most of what you see in those reports is US dollar in quotes. The impact of interpretation going forward can only but start for our year-end financials of 2019. And yes, certainly where we bring in valuers for the properties, and for instance, to do valuations, they are now doing those based on the RTGS, so the factor would apply. Question is, would it apply for the payout itself? I think at this point, knowing what is in the undercurrent may be premature for me to highlight in this particular forum, but certainly there are discussions and thoughts around, so how do we move on given the changes that have happened as a result of that particular announcement of the rate. So yeah, I hope it answers, because I don't want to preempt perhaps what is an outcome of discussions that's currently underway.
Presentations, if we could give a round of applause please to Chaka as well as Mr. Yoma for the very enlightening presentations. I think you're a shy bunch of journalists personally, so I'm expecting a lot of questions in our inbox for Chaka. Encouraging you to address, approach any one of the presenters from today's session to ask some questions, give them interviews offline, visit them in their offices. Once you've read through the presentations, if you think about anything else in an angle you'd like to swing, please do try and get in touch. We are quite happy as Zimselector to facilitate those conversations, but bear in mind that as executives, they usually have marketing departments and governance teams, so they're very cautious about PR and what gets said. So try to tell your story in advance so that they're aware of the questions you want to ask, so that they can then be prepared and, if necessary, do the necessary checks and balance. That makes the process easy. The other thing to avoid, please, from previous journalists' experience is don't find a slot on television or radio tomorrow or this afternoon and get in touch and say you want Chaka or Mr. Njoma to come through and be available for you online. These are senior executives. They will probably have top, serious schedule of agendas lined up for them for the day, and then they also need to have their checks and balances to make sure that the other authorities within the organizations are aware that they are going. So if you can bear those two things in mind, we are more than happy to facilitate making sure that you have access. If you do have any problems getting access for any of your interviews or questions afterwards, do get hold of us and we'll try and make sure that it's smooth. But if you can play your part by being professional, being organized, preempt, think about what your questions are, make them aware in advance and give them fair warning of when you'd like to either interview them or have them on air, then that would make life easier for all parties. Okay. Lois, is there anything you'd like to add to that? Right, so we're now going to get into the Journalist of the Month Award. Thank you. Okay, so general feedback, we have 25 journalists on this program that were successful in being accepted onto the program. We have received articles from 13 of the 25 journalists, and they have produced 20 articles or shows between them. Okay, we're very proud of that. It's way more than we would have expected. It's probably way more insurance articles than you've all written. So congratulations to those that have produced those articles, and give yourselves a round of applause for that. Thank you very much. So, but that 13 is still significantly short of the full complement from the angle of how could you have made that article better, more enriching, more informative, taken a more provocative angle to get the right message across to the right people. And that's what we are in it for. So all of the journalists that didn't write any articles, please, we'd like to understand what problems you're having. Do write to us. We can talk to you offline. If you need some help coming up with an angle or a spin or coming up with a topic, do approach us and we will be more than happy to assist you with that. Do remember to send articles. So if there is an article that you've written that is not going to be put on screen here today, it means that we were not aware of it. Caroline there is running the shop and handling all of your comms. So do make sure that you do send through to our customer services email clicks, links, and recordings of all of the articles that you're producing, and do send them as you are producing them. We amass those, and then at the end of the period, we circulate those amongst the sponsors, and we then review those articles and come up with who we feel are the winners. The award is just a pat on the back, some incentive to make you write more, but really the most important thing is not for you to be discouraged that there were some awards given to some people and you were the winner, but to just take the opportunity. This is a very enriching opportunity for you to learn more about insurance and write more avidly. And then the other point we'd like to make is don't just stick to the information that is presented today. I mean, you've got a great amount of information today, which is great. So what we're expecting is not that you're just going to simply regurgitate the content of the articles, because that doesn't serve anybody. The question is, take those articles, take them home, take what you've learned today, and try to think, what does this mean for the man on the street? What does this mean for the insurance companies? What does it mean for the pension companies? What are the hidden messages in there that you can take and extrapolate and come back and challenge NSSA, challenge IPEC, challenge the industry, provoke the debate? That is what this is all about. So don't simply just take what's been presented and regurgitate it. Use it to explore the avenues, and otherwise we're going to end up with 23, 25 articles all saying the same things, all making the same quotes from the presenters for today. And then trying to find unique angles. Also, don't be afraid to go off script. We've had a workshop today, we've talked about insurance and pensions and the role that it performs in the economy. Doesn't mean that every article you have to write over the next month has to be on these subjects. You can find a different article, demonstrate that you are reading and being aware to be able to talk about insurance more confidently. And if there's anything that you're not confident about presenting, you have the gurus in the house here. They're available to you to just double check if you're not confident about your understanding about a certain thing, and we'll be happy to support. And then we've got another comment here. We're saying, write with the end in mind. And the end in mind is we want to grow the insurance penetration. In Zimbabwe, we want to grow the awareness and understanding of what insurance means to the individuals on the street. We cannot do that by writing the negative perspective. I think Chaka mentioned that quite clearly in his presentation. Try to find a positive update. We're not saying hide the negative information. For sure, if it needs to be revealed, do reveal it. But think of the positive spin. Read your articles back and think, what is the so what here? When your average reader on the street is reading it, whether it's your Ambuya or Sekuru or your colleague at work, when they are reading your articles, what are they going to feel? Is it encouraging them? Are they going to be more informed? Is it encouraging them to do more, do better with their insurance risk management? And that's what this is all about. As Lloyd said, sometimes they're cautious about making certain sensitive information available to the media, because sometimes the angle that could be spun could negatively impact those organizations. So we're encouraging you to think through what the end game of your articles are. So conclude them hopefully with a positive perception for the readers. And then photographs we mentioned earlier. We've got Irvin and the team. Thank you very much to them. They produced some really nice photographs. As Caroline said, the photographs are not just for your profiles. So do use them for your profiles. You're quite welcome to, but really we'd like to see more of them in the press. Talk about the event, talk about the session, talk about the winners, talk about the presenters, in addition to obviously the main core subject, which is insurance and pensions. And then I think we talked about it at the beginning, the silent journals. We need to unsilence you, remove those gags from your mouth. So please let us know what the problems are. Hopefully next month we'll be reviewing 25 articles, at least from 25 journalists. Okay. So those are the general comments, which hopefully you'll take with the constructive intent that they've been intended. We're now going to present the journalists of the month. So from the articles, we'll just flick through those. The journalists have presented articles there. If you could please stand up so the presenters can know who you are as we talk, because I skipped the introductions at the beginning, unfortunately deliberately, because we were running short of time. So Adelaide from the Financial Gazette. Davison Vandira from ZBC. A lot of clever questions, thanks Davison. Irene Kalulu. We've got her there from Mrs. Zimbabwe, which is actually a freelancer. So. Margaret Mpisila. Is she here today? Nope. Okay. Makolo Amlot. Right. And he's from Insurance 24. Melody Chikono from Zimbabwe Independent. Michael Magoronga from the Herald, not here today. Noah Kupeta from COSA. Omega Okama from Fingas. Tatenda Mugabe from Econet Wireless. I've missed Sapatisi. Did I get that right? Star FM there. Tawanda Musarurwa from the Herald. Tendai Makaripe from Freelance Journalist. So is there anybody that we've missed? We should have put all the names up there really, but is there anybody we've missed? You don't have, unless you're feeling shy about not having produced an article, but you can stand up and say hi. Right, okay, so we're going to quickly flick through the articles because we need to be rounding off soon. So we've got Adelaide Moyo. What we do with all the articles, and you get the presentation decks, is we do write some comments for you to take away. We will not run through all of the comments on the articles. there for you to then read and take note of if there's anything that we need to point out. For some, there'll be lots of comments. For some, there'll be fewer comments. Don't take anything personally if you're one of those that has few comments. It's just about what we thought were the key messages. So generally, I think all the articles were very good. These are just key points that the reviewers were highlighting to say that maybe you could do differently in your next article. So take them with a positive intent. So Adelaide from FinGas, and she wrote an article there on low confidence affecting the insurer's uptake, focusing primarily on the IPEC story. We've got Dason Wandira's article. That was actually an audio clipping. That was a television show presented on ZBC Prime Time. And his focus there was primarily on the role of NASA following the last presentation. And we've got Irene Kalulu there, and she did a presentation focusing again on IPEC, good story, relevant line there. And we've given some tips on what she could have done to maybe explore more, bring different angles to her story. Right, Margaret, their story, talking about retirement, vibrant article, writer presents subject, compelling energy, we talked about relevant subject, maybe could have concluded on a more positive story. So again, it's more or less we don't want to discourage people from planning for retirement, we want to encourage them. So if we focus on the what's gone wrong, try to think of the and so what we should be doing to improve that situation. Insurance 24, I'm sure we sort of had a problem logging on to Insurance 24. I'm not sure if there was something wrong with our network or your network. But so we don't have a clipping of the article there. But a well-presented article there, again, focusing on IPEC and NASA. And how this, and we were just encouraging research on more angles in the article. So thank you very much, Anmot. Makolo, sorry. And another Insurance 24 article from Makolo again. So she's been writing lots, thank you very much. Melody from the Zimbabwe Independent, very good article there, showing a nice picture that makes you feel very sympathetic about the people and the queues. Again, focusing on the low levels of confidence, but if we can, do try to then again just try and reinforce the positive message, because we don't want to reinforce why people should be feeling poor confidence, we want to uplift that confidence. Michael from the Herald, good article again, no pictures. We like pictures because we think pictures make you want to read an article, so try to find some exciting pictures for us just to have a look at if you can't use the ones from the session. Thank you. We got Noah Kopeta, who produced very creatively 3 articles for different, radio shows, talk shows on ZFM, Hevoi, and what is the other one? Sorry. Gogo FM, I think it was. So thank you very much in 3 different languages. Well done for that. Omega from FinGas, really good article there about the number of people facing old age poverty again because of lack of pensions and investments in insurance. And we've got Omega on the Zim Forex crisis hits reinsurers and how that's impacting reinsurance, which was great. We liked because it then brought in a different angle to the information that was not presented. So well done, Omega, on going outside the scope of what was presented. IPEC promotes fragmented regulation, so that's very good. That's a very good agenda for IPEC to be carrying, for the journalists to be carrying forward. Star FM, Satisiwe again. Again, Star FM program, we have the recording if anybody wants to have a listen to that. Visual coverage, but very effective. As we all know, Star FM is very widely listened to. And another one from Satisiwe again, a rundown on issues presented in the session. We need to bring in some new angles in terms of the so what and what does that mean. Got a nice picture there. Social Security Officer from Tatenda Mgabe, and again that was focusing on the NASA story. So I think NASA is getting lots of mileage and publicity on their role and contribution to society. Tawanda there from the Herald has presented a poignant article, again focusing on the NASA role. Thank you, Ray. Okay, so we had 3 articles there, all in all, from Tawanda. Thank you very much. Tendai, very provocative picture there showing a very devastating image from the cyclone Idai, and I think he drew on some really good stories where he talks to, I think, 3 or 4 individuals that had actually been affected and how they wish their lives were different because if they had insurance. So very evocative use of picture there. We're now going to run through the awards, which we very simply will present 2 runners-up and the winner. The winner gets 150 RTGS dollars, unfortunately. Okay. So we have the second runner-up is going to Tawanda Masaruwa, who's given us 2 articles. First one challenging NASA on the social security gap that they've got to close between the 4 and 7 pillars. So thank you very much, Tawanda. The second article was the impact of the. Yes, please do. And I'm slow on the uptake here because I'd like to call upon IPEC and NASA to please come forward with a representative for the first photo session in their presentation. So. Thank you very much, my slip up on that. Are you happy with this corner? Right, our second runner-up, first runner-up goes to Tendai Makaripe. And thank you very much for that evocative picture and very enriching article. Sorry, I beg your pardon. She's asleep today, the presenter. I do beg your pardon. So our winner of the Journalist of the Month for the period of March to April goes to Noah Kopeta from COSA. I think the incredible thing about Noah is that he managed to come up with 3 articles in 3 different languages and get them on 3 different radio stations covering very wide reach. So I think for that creativity, we very much applauded. In addition to which, he actually is from COSA, so he's actually not an employee of any of these agencies. So he's obviously used a lot of creativity and energy and resolve to go out and make sure his messages got out there. So very well done to you, Noah, and congratulations on your Journalist of the Month award. Thank you very much. Okay, but big congratulations again, as we said, to everybody that has written an article. We make the choice not to discourage anyone, but to maybe encourage you to all write more, and hopefully we'll see the rest of you up here on stage. If not next month, definitely throughout the next 10 sessions that we have. So at this stage, I just wanted to invite any questions if you have any. We're running a reasonably good time before we do photographs. If you have any questions, either of the session, clarification about interviews, audios, etc., please do send them forward. Is there anything pressing that you would like to ask us whilst we have all our sponsors on the table? No. So we do hope that you're finding the sessions useful. We will be sending around to you all via email or WhatsApp some questionnaires because we would like to get your feedback on how you feel the sessions are going, how you're benefiting from them, and if there's anything that you think that we should consider changing or altering to make them more useful or informative for you. Just to repeat, presentations will be sent out to you this afternoon via email to your registered mailboxes. The videos and footage will be sent through over the next few days, probably immediately after the weekend. The urban Emmys crew are usually very fast in getting those route to you. So do make sure you have received them. If you have not received all the material, very latest by Tuesday, Wednesday, please do get in touch with us so that we can make that available to you. So we've now come to the very end of our session. We'd like to extend a very warmest thanks to our two presenters for today, who give us some very enlightening presentations both from NASA and from IPEC. And again, thank you to our host sponsors. Be on time, in good time, so that we can take full value, because the later we are, the later we start, and then we cut short change question times.